The text landed while I was standing in line at the grocery store, holding a plastic tray of grapes I didn't really want. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, and the cashier was arguing with a man about an expired coupon. Everything felt normal enough that it took me a second to realize my hands had gone cold. Don't come to New Year's. Your brother's future in-laws will be there. They're rich elites. I don't want any awkwardness. I was 32 years old, and my mother had just uninvited me for my own family's New Year's celebration like I was a liability. My name is Daniel. I lived alone in a narrow apartment on the third floor of a walk-up that always smelled faintly of dust and burnt toast. I made a living editing audio from home, commercials, podcasts, the occasional indie film, work that paid the bills but didn't come with titles or dinner party bragging rights. I wasn't broke. I wasn't flashy. I was acceptable, or at least I thought I was. My younger brother Aaron was getting married in the spring. He'd always been the easy one, good in school, good with people, the kind of guy who could slip into any room and belong there. His fiancée, Lila, came from money. Real money. The kind my mom never said outright, but always circled carefully, like it might bite if named too directly. I stared at the screen as the line moved forward without me. The woman behind me cleared her throat. I stepped aside, mumbling an apology, and let her pass. The grapes felt heavier than they should have. I typed back, awkward how? The reply came fast, like she'd been waiting. You know what I mean, Daniel. I didn't. Or maybe I did, and that was the problem. I paid for the grapes and walked home in the cold, my phone warm in my palm like it was alive. I tried to tell myself this was just my mom being my mom, overthinking, smoothing things over before they could wrinkle. She'd always done that. After Dad left, she became obsessed with appearances, with making sure nothing else slipped away. Still, this felt different. At home, I tossed the grapes into the fridge untouched and sat on the edge of the couch. I scrolled up through older messages. Photos she'd sent me of Aaron and Lila at engagement parties, dinners I hadn't been invited to, but had smiled about anyway. I noticed something then that I hadn't allowed myself to notice before. How often she talked about them now. How rarely she asked about me. My phone buzzed again. Aaron this time. Hey, Mom told me she texted you. I waited before replying, watching the typing bubble appear and disappear on his end, like he was rehearsing. Yeah, I wrote. She did. Another pause. Longer. I didn't know she was going to say it like that. He finally sent. I read the message 3 times. Now I didn't know she felt that way. Now I'm sorry. Just like that. Do you want me there? I asked. The dots appeared. Vanished. Appeared again. It's complicated, he wrote. That word hit harder than the text from my mom. Complicated was what people said when they'd already chosen a side, but weren't ready to admit out loud. I set the phone down and leaned back, staring at the ceiling where a faint water stain looked like a map of somewhere I'd never been. Memories started lining up in my head, small moments I'd shrugged off before. The way Mom had insisted I dress a little nicer when I met Lila's parents. The way conversations stopped when I walked into rooms lately. This wasn't about New Year's. It wasn't even about money. It was about shame. And sitting there alone, listening to the radiator knock against itself, I realized something I couldn't undo. My family had already decided who I was allowed to be to them now. And whatever came next was going to prove just how far they were willing to go to keep me out. A week earlier, before the text, before the word awkward lodged itself in my chest, I'd been at my mom's house fixing the loose hinge on her back door. It was the kind of thing I'd always done without being asked. She handed me tools, hovered too close, sighed like the house itself was another burden she carried alone. Careful, she said as I tightened the screw. That door's old. So, am I? I joked. She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Aaron showed up halfway through, coat perfectly pressed, hair still holding the shape of whatever stylist Lila had introduced him to. He hugged me, quick and light, then launched into a story about a dinner he'd just come from. Names I didn't recognize. Restaurants I couldn't pronounce. They're flying in for New Year's, he said casually. Lila's parents. Big thing. Black tie. Mom lit up at that, like someone had turned a dimmer switch. I'm thinking of having it catered, she said. Just something elegant. I wiped my hands on a rag. At your house. She hesitated. Just a fraction too long. We'll see. That hesitation followed me all the way home that night. It sat beside me on the bus, pressed against the window with its reflection overlapping mine. I told myself it was nothing. I'd always told myself that. Growing up, I learned early how to take up less space. After Dad left, money was tight, tension tighter. Aaron adapted by excelling. I adapted by not asking. If something went missing from the fridge, I said nothing. If Mom snapped, I apologized, even when I didn't know why. I became good at absorbing discomfort and calling it peace. A few days after fixing the door, I stopped by again to drop off a flash drive I'd promised Aaron. He wasn't there. Mom's car was in the driveway, but the house felt quieter than usual, like it was holding its breath. "Just leave it on the counter," she called from the living room. I stepped inside and froze. The dining room table was covered in place cards, cream-colored with gold lettering. I wasn't snooping. They were laid out in plain sight, neat rows catching the afternoon light. I scanned the names without meaning to. Lila's parents, her aunts, uncles, business partners, people I'd never met, but somehow already felt judged by. I didn't see my name. I told myself that didn't mean anything. Maybe they weren't finished. Maybe mine was somewhere else. Then I noticed something else. A seating chart taped to the wall, carefully arranged. Head of the table, Mom, Lila's father. Aaron beside Lila. There was a space where my chair would have been. Not empty, repurposed. A floral arrangement drawn in its place. My chest tightened, slow and deliberate, like a hand closing around it. Mom walked in behind me. "Oh," she said softly. "You're early." I turned to face her. I didn't know New Year's was black tie. She avoided my eyes, busying herself with straightening a stack of napkins that were already straight. "Things change. Do I have a place?" I asked. She looked up then, really looked at me, and for a second, something flickered across her face. Fear, maybe, or calculation. "Daniel," she said, lowering her voice, "it's just one night." I nodded. I even smiled. "Right, one night." I left the flash drive on the counter and walked out before she could say anything else. Outside, the air felt sharper, like it was cutting me open cleanly instead of dull and slow. Back in my apartment, I sat in the dark and replayed every moment I'd brushed aside. Every polite smile, every careful omission. It was all there now, humming under the surface like a live wire. This wasn't about sparing me discomfort. It was about erasing me from a picture that no longer had room for imperfections. My phone buzzed. A new message from an unknown number. "This is Lila. We should talk before New Year's." I stared at the screen as that quiet hum turned into something louder, more focused. Because whatever she wanted to say, I knew one thing for certain now. They weren't just keeping me out. They were hiding something. I didn't reply to Lila right away. I sat with the phone face down on the table, listening to my own breathing, waiting for the tightness in my chest to settle into something usable. When I finally picked it up, I typed only 3 words. "About what exactly?" Her response came a minute later. "About New Year's. And about you." We met the next afternoon at a cafe she'd chosen. All marble countertops and quiet confidence. The kind of place where no one rushed you, but everyone noticed. Lila was already there, sitting straight-backed, hands folded around a porcelain cup she hadn't touched. "Daniel," she said, standing when she saw me. Polite. Practiced. I sat across from her. "You wanted to talk." She inhaled slowly. "I didn't know your mom had already said something." "She told me not to come," I said. I kept my voice calm. "Because you come from rich elites." Lila winced. Just a little. Enough to be telling. She shouldn't have put it that way. But she did. Lila glanced around, then leaned in. "My parents are very image-conscious. They asked about everyone who would be there. Backgrounds, careers, associations. And you told them what about me?" Her eyes met mine then. Direct. Unflinching. "I told them you were between things." Something inside me went very still. "I've been editing audio for 10 years. "I know," she said quickly, "but they don't understand work that isn't visible. Titles matter to them. And you let my mom decide I was a liability." She didn't deny it. That was the proof. Not a document or a confession, just the absence of resistance. "It didn't want distractions," she said. "Your mom wanted the night to go smoothly." I thought, Maybe it would be easier if you weren't there. Easier. The word landed like a slap. I paid for my coffee I hadn't ordered and stood. Thanks for being honest. That night, I made a decision. Not loud, not dramatic. I sent one message to Aaron. I know why I wasn't invited. I'm done being the thing you hide. New Year's is yours. But don't ask me to pretend later that this didn't happen. He called immediately. His voice was strained, defensive. You're blowing this up. No, I said. You already did. I just finally see it. On New Year's Eve, I didn't stay home. I dressed well, better than I ever had for their sake, and went to a small industry event downtown, one Aaron had laughed off months earlier when I mentioned it. I shook hands. I talked shop. I listened. At midnight, my phone buzzed. A message from my mom. Your brother told me what you said. You embarrassed us. I looked around at the room, at people who knew my name because of my work, not despite it. I typed back. I didn't embarrass you. You did that yourself. Weeks later, Aaron showed up at my door alone. No polished jacket. No rehearsed smile. He looked smaller somehow. They asked why you weren't there, he said. And when Mom explained, it didn't land the way she thought. I nodded. That was my quiet victory. Not revenge. Just reality finally doing its job. We stood there in the hallway, the silence between us no longer heavy, just honest. If you've ever been pushed out of your own story, know this. You don't have to fight loudly to reclaim it. Sometimes all it takes is standing where you belong and letting the truth speak without you. If this story resonated, like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. After storms, the air always feels clearer. And when you stop shrinking yourself, you realize your roots were deeper than they ever understood.